uh, looks like our audio levels are looking good on the recording side as well. So we are good to go, man. Well, dude,
Cool,
thank you so
cool,
much for
cool.
joining me on the podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be here.
Awesome, man. So I always like to, just start out with a quick introduction. Let you tell us who you are and kind of elementary school style, something unique about you that people may not know.
Yeah, so like about me personally,
Yeah, about you,
not
man.
like the band per se.
Yeah, you. Yep.
Um, yeah, so my name is Wesley, and I am the lead singer of Suit Up Soldier, and I, hmm, I like music. There's
Wouldn't
the
have guessed.
first thing. Not a lot of people know this unless they've like been around me for a couple of years. That I was a huge skater growing up. Not skateboard, but like
Inline?
rollerblades.
Oh, nice,
Yeah, like
dude.
inline skate. Yeah, like I never bought like an aggressive pair of skates. But yeah, the inline skates. But I just used like the cheap, uh, like recreational inline skates and took those to the skate park every day of 6th and 7th grade.
That's
So
incredible.
was really big into it. Kind of fell out of it when I got into high school. So
Yeah, dude. That's awesome. I remember my parents got me a pair with like the coping in the middle. I was like, "Yes, I can grind." And I was just too scared to ever grind. I was just terrified
right,
of it.
yeah,
That's awesome, man. It takes a lot of talent to do that stuff. So, well, I'm gonna just jump right out the gate here and first off, I'm super glad that I found your music. I've been absolutely loving it.
oh heck
And
yeah, thank you.
yeah, dude. The entire album is fantastic. So I want to just kind of talk. Obviously, the album's been out, just hit its 1 year anniversary, right?
Yeah, back in May.
Dude. And tell me kind of, obviously, right as it came out May, 2021, right as things are kind of transitioning, that little awkward phase of like, hey, can we play shows? Can we not? Is it a good thing to do? Is it a bad thing to do? So you're kind of in this awkward phase. You release this album after obviously a bunch of work. We're going to obviously talk about kind of what led up to it. But um, as you released it, tell me a little bit about what the last year has been like since releasing the album and seeing things start rolling.
Yeah, it was a lot because we had released the first few singles off of the album during 2019 and 2020,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had I think about 6 songs left to record on this album, and we wanted to release it as a full body of work. I know today's day and age, it's like a singles game, and it's best to release singles, but we eventually wanted to compile everything as a whole body of work. And so we decided that we'd had these songs in the pipeline for too long. Here's Spartacus. Pull up a stool, man. Well, without the fries. And yeah, so we decided to do a Kickstarter. Well, first we'd had our Spartacus here was one of the main booking agents for our 2020 tour, and we opened for Coin. I don't know if you know the band Coin. They're like big indie pop band. Slash
Yeah, I
pop
looked them
rock
up
band.
after I looked them up after reading a bit more of kind of, your guys' history, so
Yeah, so we opened for them in January 2020, sold out crowd of 2,000 people, and it was supposed to be just like this big kickoff for our tour that we'd booked. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and that all went down the drain. So
yeah, dude.
the funds that we were going to use from tour um, to finish our album were basically obsolete at that point. And so we decided to
Yeah.
do a Kickstarter, and we successfully funded the Kickstarter again. Huge thanks to this guy who messaged a ton of people. Maybe this isn't supposed to be on the record, but like I had I had him message a bunch of my Facebook friends and like Instagram followers because I was too busy. I was too busy
Yeah.
to I was like dealing with my divorce / separation, and being a dad, and being the producer and engineer of the album. And yeah, it was just a lot. So like he stepped in and helped a lot with that, and was able to send messages that I was able to approve the
Yeah.
curated message first, and then I eventually kind of kept contact with those who responded, and funded a $20,000 Kickstarter, of which we only really kept like 13,000 to be able to record with, but that's what made that work of 11 songs that you hear today.
That's so cool, man.
Or is
So
it 10 or 11?
well, 11 technically, right? Because you got that intro song that's
yeah, there's
an
an intro track, so 11
Yes.
tracks, 10 songs.
Yeah. That's the way to put it. So I mean, pretty incredible to be able to fund a Kickstarter right out the gate. So obviously you said reached out to your friends and stuff, but was there some traction there that helped, or was it just genuinely just friends, family? What was it that because the funding of an album, you said 20,000, that's a lot. That's not a small chunk of change to come up with, right? So
Yeah.
So how many people ended up contributing, and kind of how did you guys find enough money?
It was around a couple hundred, I think just under like 200 people all told. And a lot of them were, friends, family, acquaintances, etc., that I and Wes reached out to. There were a few of those that made like bigger chunk donations, but a lot of them were, just small chunks, like doing what they could. 5, 10, $25. There's a good number of people who did like $50 each, which those added up, and then less that did like 100 each and everything. But then there were also not a ton, but there were a few people who donated to our Kickstarter who were like people we didn't know personally, who through some means heard of the band, in one way or another, and decided to donate to our Kickstarter because I guess they heard maybe some of our songs that we had out at the time already and like thought we were good and believed in us or whatever. So I would say it was probably like 90% friends and family, and then 10% like unknown fans of the band.
There was of the fans, I imagine that they discovered us through Tongue Tied Twisted. Occasionally they would discover us through other songs, but I had released Tongue Tied Twisted before Spartacus and Stingray, the guitar player, had joined the band. And, kind of glad I had because that was part of the reason I think that drew them to the band. And they were some of the best players in the area that I was excited to play with. And,
well, thank you.
Yeah. So I believe some people may have discovered that song because, it was kind of our more viral, like, I don't know if you can say viral, but it has over 2 million streams now.
Yeah.
And at the time had at least 50,000 and maybe 100,000 by the time we started the Kickstarter.
Yeah. Pretty stellar.
So it was definitely a really good start for our career when I was able to get that song out and then kind of slowly build the band and the rest of our songs. Yeah. But there was one friend that donated to our Kickstarter that accidentally donated like 3,000 instead of 300.
Oh, no.
we hit the goal, like the 20,000 goal, but then we had to like refund him all of that money because he's like, hey, sorry, I didn't mean to donate that whole amount. It's like, hey, we understand.
Yeah, so, for sure.
It was a little bit bittersweet because the day that we funded the album, we were trying to explain to fans like, hey, so like we could use a little more funds. We're not technically fully funded, but it was like by that point everyone was just celebrating. We're like, let's just go with it.
Yeah. And
we celebrated.
We did celebrate.
I bet. I mean, absolutely worth it. So
it was his first time getting drunk.
Oh, nice. So did you guys end up doing like a local studio then, or where did you go for recording?
Yeah. Well, for a lot of the songs we actually recorded here in our home studio. Oh, nice. Because with things like guitar and bass guitar and synths, we've got all the digital setups to be able to do that stuff direct in, and even drums we did here, which I think
/ your old basement.
Yeah, we did. We recorded the drums a mixture between the studio here and my old studio, which was in my parents' basement, about 30 minutes away from here. But I mean, we'd sound treated these spaces and everything so that it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sounded at least decent, and have, recording equipment. And I think, the album, like, I think it's safe to say it sounds good. People like it, but on our next batch of songs, we decided, from here on out, we're like, every time we record live drums or any sort of live instrument, we're going to go to like one of the nice studios. So close by here that's like June Audio.
Yeah, June
or
Audio, still there.
Solarium Studios in
Uh-huh.
Alpine. And then there's some nice ones up in Salt Lake too.
Heck yeah.
But on this album, it was mostly all in our home studio, actually.
And then it was
Yeah.
mixed. We did some live strings at June Audio,
That's right. Yeah, on Untouchable.
and those ended up sounding good. And
The mixing was there too.
and Scott Wiley at June Audio did the mixing on the rest of the album. It was Mitch Davis, who used to work at Solarium, but now he's I guess private now. Mitch Davis did the mix on Rivers and Cities and Tongue Tied Twisted,
Okay.
and then Gavin McMahon did the mix on Roses Are Red, Violets Are Violet. He also did the co-production on Tongue Tied Twisted, and a little bit on Rivers and Cities. He was kind of more just the drummer on Rivers and Cities, and then
Okay.
Before
and
I
then
joined the band, so
yeah, and then the rest of the songs were all mixed and mastered at June Audio.
And how did you guys like? I know obviously, Wesley, you started everything. It's kind of like this is kind of your brainchild, your baby. But how did the band come together? Because I know you've gone through quite a few lineups throughout history of the band. But how did you guys get to meet each other and get everything settled in? Because you said it was, you got into the studio and you'd finally found that lineup, right? And that's when you got into the studio, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we didn't take our last bit of songs into the studio until we had found this lineup. But the first singles were pretty much me, and Josh, the old keys player,
Okay.
and a couple of the transients that had come through. But yeah, the rest of the album was mostly between us, Stingray, and
Dan
and then
Ankerman, who recorded some of the guitar parts as well.
that's right.
Okay.
So Dan and then Josh, our keys player, did a lot of the keys work.
Yeah.
And had
So-
you guys known each other prior?
Me and Wes.
Yeah, like any of you in the band, have you guys known each other prior to starting to work together in the band, or?
Well, so I know Wes and Stingray like loosely knew each other, just had crossed paths many times in the local music scene over the years, and both going to BYU. Wes and I, however, we did not meet until like August or September of 2019, which was right before I joined the band. And at least from my perspective, our first time meeting was kind of funny. I was looking for a backyard for a venue for my old band to have like an outdoor show somewhere in Provo. And he had actually commented on the Facebook post I made about that and like said, hey, you could maybe use my backyard at the house he lived in back then. And came and checked it out. And actually my first impression of him, he was like wearing this backwards flat brim and he was like super in a rush. So I was like, oh, he's kind of douchey.
You just assume he's a douchebag.
Honestly, I feel like my first impression of anyone who's ever become like a really close friend has almost universally been like a really bad first impression. And then the second time it like becomes really good and we like get tight from there. But the second time meeting and where we like actually started getting to know each other was at BYU Commercial Music Social, because we were both in that major, and we started talking after. And I wish I could remember like exact details of how that conversation went, but it was something like you mentioned how you guys were like kind of between drummers, so to speak.
And he's like,
and I was like, I'm between bands.
Looking for new bands.
Yeah, because I had been somewhat disenchanted with being committed to bands for a while because of stuff that happened with my old band. But but I was starting to miss like having a project that I was like really creatively invested in, you know, because just playing freelance for people wasn't as fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
So he mentioned that, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll check your stuff out." And he had already released Tongue Tied Twisted and Rivers and Cities, and so I checked those out. And I was like, "Oh, damn, this is like actually really good."
Yeah. Yeah.
um, like surprisingly so. You never expect like a local artist to have something that's produced that well and that well written and stuff. So I was definitely interested from that point on, and anyways, what ended up happening was I had one final show with my old band scheduled at Valor, and we needed some support acts. So I actually called up Wes and I was like, "Hey, how would Suit Up Soldier feel about opening for Phantom Future, which is the name of my old band?" And he was like,
Mhm.
"Let me check with the guys." And he called me back like not 10 minutes later, and he's like, "We're in if you can drum for us." I was like, "Well,
That's
okay."
awesome.
I was like, "Yeah, I'll pull double duty." And I guess that was kind of my trial show with Suit Up Soldier. And after that, we never looked back. And that was actually also Ryan's first, Stingray's first show with the
That's
band as well.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
So
that, I mean,
October.
those are always fun. Those are always fun stories to hear because it's like
Yeah.
there's so much. There's like honestly, when you were talking about like quality production and stuff, I'm surprised Utah's music scene hasn't exploded more than it has, right? Because I feel like there's something unique about our music scene in Utah that like there are a lot of high quality production artists and a lot of production value being provided not just in the recording process but the live show. I remember way back in the day, and this is one of the bands that did go live, but at Valor I opened for Neon Trees, and just when I saw him on stage and saw the whole band and the way they acted and like the production, I was like, these guys have to make it. And then literally 2 years later, they released their debut album that's on a record label and just exploded, right? And I was just like,
Yeah.
but there's so many bands in Utah, and I mean, you guys are in that same boat, that I'm just like, why is our scenes kind of overlooked? I'm still trying to figure that one out. Why
Yeah.
Utah's music scene is overlooked? It's sad.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is that it's a lack of a presence of a label,
That would make
but
sense.
of at least a big label. And
Yeah, we've got the small local stuff, but
yeah,
Yeah. And I think that, the music industry, there's a lot of gatekeeping, I think. So, and it can be hard to break through those, those levels, as well as like you might have a band that like gets really popular here in Utah per se, but then they go to like LA or Nashville or New York, and like no one cares
that's what.
because it's an
Yeah,
oversaturated market, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to almost like create something that's really striking and or different and unique, just undeniably good, and to really draw people in. I feel like I don't know, like people are kind of a little bit jaded sometimes, I think, when it comes to like new music almost.
I mean,
um
yeah, it's such a saturated world now with all the streaming platforms and instant music at your fingertips. Like obviously, like for example, like Wes and I, we met at John Allred's concert, and
oh, sweet.
John's been a friend of mine for years. I just was like obsessed with his music when I was in high school, and then like basically grew up together, kind of thing. As I'm like going through high school and just like I graduate, he's just always reaching out like, "Hey, how's it going?" And so then I meet Wes at his show, and it's just kind of like um, instantly I'm able to look up, Suit Up Soldier. I'm able to find it, add it to my library, and because it's so easy, it's like it can get lost sometimes, and it's so unfortunate. I hate it. I wish that it
Yeah.
was different, but I also like I love that it has broken down that kind of what you're talking about, that gate, right? That gatekeeping has been lessened, but it's still like so prevalent. And it's like for you guys, with that in mind, with your album, when you released the album, what were some of like the strategies you guys employed to kind of try? I mean, obviously the album itself is very well produced, which helps, but your guys' strategy to kind of break through that as well. Like what were you guys' like thoughts as you were trying to promote and market this album after having recorded it and releasing it?
Well,
have some thoughts, but yeah, if you want
I'll just open up by saying I think we definitely, and I know you'll agree with this, we definitely could have done a lot more and a lot better at marketing the album. But I think by the time we were finished with it and released it, we were kind of like, we're done with this thing, which is a little unfortunate. We all felt a little burnt out just because we were all so deeply involved in the process of making the album, because we're an independent band and at the time didn't have any sort of manager or label backing at all. I mean, now we're on a small indie label that really just does physical distribution, and we have a manager who's been helpful getting the ball rolling on some things. But we did do several like social media posts and stuff. It's only just recently that we've realized we need to start utilizing TikTok and Instagram Reels more, which we've been slowly getting into.
Okay, boomer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hard, man.
Bro.
I feel so old whenever I'm like, oh, I've got to make TikToks. I'm like, I can't be bothered to make TikToks.
I got to get on the Clock app.
Yeah.
Yeah. I backing up a little bit. That I remember that November that we were finishing mixing the album after we'd recorded most of it. I pulled like 8 all-nighters, and then he stood in on a couple of those all-nighters to try to support me, and because I was like still trying to finish up organizing all the sessions to deliver to the mixing engineer, and as well as like do some final production.
Mm-hmm.
So burnt out is an understatement. We were
exhausted.
We'd run ourselves into the ground.
Yeah.
So by the time that we were getting ready to release the album, we hired a management company to help us release the album.
That's right. I completely forgot about this.
Yeah, and we wanted the album to do well, so we like hired this company, and we were trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but like we were starting to see some signs of, they were too kind of green, like they're just too new and didn't really know what they were doing. And I remember the one girl who had never managed anyone before. She was just kind of like under the wing of like the main guy. She made us like this video on Canva to do an advertisement, and she's like, okay, how does this look? And she misspelled like 3 or 4 of the songs.
Oh no.
And it was like,
it just was not.
It did not look good. It was so bad. It just didn't look professional at all. And I was like, we were like, yeah, we don't feel like it totally fits the brand, and you could, and here's some spelling errors, and trying to be super nice. But then they were getting like names of the venues wrong. That we started to have them do some booking, and they were getting all the names of the venues wrong. They were getting our genre wrong. They clearly hadn't listened to our music. It got to the point after I think 3 months that we were just like, yeah, no, sorry guys,
we need to fire them.
I mean, you're paying for it. You gotta get value. It's gotta. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, we had a buddy of ours hop on a phone call with them because he was trying to organize an event in Nevada. In New Mexico. Thank you.
Okay.
And he lives in New Mexico now, and he hopped on the phone with them, and he's kind of a fiery personality. So he calls us up. He's like, you guys gotta fire those guys right away. Like, they were the worst, like most unprofessional, like all this stuff. And like, we hadn't had that exact same experience as he was having, but like, we were definitely having an experience where they were like, they were just like sometimes non-responsive and just didn't seem super professional at sometimes. And so we were like, okay, we're hearing this from multiple sides. We're feeling it ourselves. And we finally fired the company, and now we're like back to square one. And we'd even tried spending like $1,000 on Instagram marketing.
Mm-hmm.
All down the drain. The marketing company got us maybe like 2 followers, and
oh my gosh,
all went down the drain. And we're like,
lessons learned though, right?
Lots of lessons learned in this process.
Oh my goodness.
So a lot of the traction that you see on Spotify is actually organic.
That's awesome though. I mean,
yeah, it's cool. Like, I just wish we had known more about the marketing strategy earlier on, so that we could have given the album some more and better success. But you live and learn. And
luckily our live show is what has gotten us through this thing. Because our live show is like really dialed in. So
that's awesome. And I know, Wesley, you said you have started managing on the side, right? Helping bands with
Yeah.
booking and stuff. So I'm sure that's helped a bit as well on the Suit Up Soldier side as well.
Yeah.
But you know, what are some of like the prime lessons that you're gonna take into the next album? Some of the main things, because obviously the burnout. I'd imagine there's no way that you're going to push yourself like that again, because it's not sustainable. It kind of ruins things, man. But like, what are some of the lessons that you learned that you're gonna take into this next, you know, session that you guys plan?
A slow and steady pace for sure, which is what we've been doing since January. We've been working on new material. Exciting. You know, and even earlier than that, one of the first things we realized just a couple months after releasing album one was that instead of spending so much money, you know, on like a good mix engineer, like, which I mean is still important, but we realized it was really important to get a good producer on our songs, because the first album was largely, you know, self-produced by us, a lot by Wes. I helped with that some, and we realized like having an objective third party, like experienced, really good producer is something that is just invaluable. So on this next batch of songs, we're going single by single for a while, and whether or not they become part of album two or not, it remains to be seen. I mean, they definitely could, because we have a strong like theme for a lot of the new songs, but we're gonna, at least for the first little while, release them single by single, and we'll see how they do and see if it's viable from there to you know, go full in on a second album, or maybe do an EP, you know, we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then yeah, like 2 months after album two, we approached
After album one, you mean?
that's what I meant. Yeah.
Okay.
2 months after album
It's
one,
like
we approached a producer by the name of Randy Slaw, who is Utah local, but he has won several Grammys for his work with metal bands like Periphery, and he's also produced for David Archuleta and other more pop acts. He's very versatile.
Cool.
And he already knew us loosely, so we took him to lunch one day and we're like, hey, you know, what would it cost for you to produce for us, and what do you even want to produce for us? And he had actually listened to a lot of our first album. He was like, yeah, I love what you guys have done. I think your sound is great, and I believe in your project. Let's work together. So starting in January, we started working just a little bit at a time on a song which Wes had written, which will be the first new single that we release. And we've got another one in the pipeline for like right after that we're just finishing up the demoing stages of. And then, you know, we've got more like further back in the pipeline to just kind of churn out.
But the next one is more of the one he started writing that one first, and then brought it to the band. So that first one is one that I kind of started writing, brought to the band. We finished it. Second one he wrote and then brought it to the band.
So, oddly enough, though, they're actually very similar songs.
That's awesome, though.
There's some pretty huge differences, but there's also like
a lot of
similarity, which is just kind of funny. So
I mean, honestly, that's one of the coolest things. Like, and obviously that's why you bring in a producer as well, right? Is to get that extra perspective, to try and push beyond what you think limitations are, or what you think it should sound like. Add some extra ears who aren't just, you know, an active listener, someone like me who just enjoys listening and will follow, but like someone who truly hears every little detail. That's huge. And when you guys, you know, started working with him, I haven't missed any singles, right? So the album is that's the most recent release. I just wanted to make sure, because I was like, that's what I had listened to. I was like, I hope I didn't miss anything. But
that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. And I want to really quickly go back to the album, primarily because, like I said, I'm a huge fan of what you guys did. The fact that every song has its own identity, but it still flows, is very, very, I feel like, I mean, super difficult to accomplish, but super awesome as a listener. And I'm curious to know what your guys' favorite songs are from the album, that you know, whether it's you know, just the background of the song or favorite one to play. But what are you guys' favorite songs from the album?
You want to go first?
Sure. Oh, it's hard to say because you work so long on every song, you start to care about every single one.
Yeah.
Um, and I think performing live, we love Villains. It's just
Oh,
like
heck yeah.
it just hits hard live, and the guitarist gets to do what he wants.
Yeah.
Drummer gets to do what he wants. we have really cool fun ending that throws people off, and we just like doing that. And so
Awesome.
Villains is fun to perform live. Tongue Tied Twisted, I'll always have a huge space in my heart for that song because that
That
song
was your
was like,
debut, right?
it was the debut. I went through like 4 or 5 versions of that song before. We took them off of Spotify since then, but in 2018 I released an EP of demos, because I had just been holding on to these songs and like was not having success like getting them recorded and produced and stuff.
Yeah.
And Tongue Tied Twisted used to be a pop punk song.
Oh,
If you
really?
could even call it pop punk, it was more just like punk, like almost
Okay.
like, and Dashboard Vibes had an acoustic guitar in it and stuff. And
Interesting.
it was, yeah, we have the old version. I think it's on the deluxe version of the album that you can buy through our label who's doing the physical
Sick.
distribution. They're called Renaissance Records,
Okay.
and you can buy the deluxe version of the album there that will have 2 bonus tracks. One is the old version of Tongue Tied Twisted and a song called Morning Song.
Heck yeah.
And
Which is actually a great song. Like I
Yes.
love that song. It's a little stylistically different from what the band is now, just because the sound evolved over time.
Yeah.
You know, but it's still like, honestly, like I think it would be cool if we relearned that song and performed it live sometimes.
Yeah. And Tongue Tied Twisted is always going to have that place in my heart because, I put so much time into it and really, really focused on every little tiny piece. When someone approached me and was like, listening to the old version, they're like, yeah, I just feel like this needs to be a pop song, which is like, I'd already been feeling that it needed to be a pop song. And that's when I just like went full force. Once I got that feedback, I went full force, and I hired Gavin as my co-producer, Gavin McMahon, and we went to town on that song, and Mitch did an awesome job on the mastering. And yeah, I also love Picture. It didn't turn out like the way that I wanted per se, but it still turned out awesome, and I love that song. Crying in College, that one's probably like the message of that song is probably closer to my heart because
Yeah.
I came out as gay in 2020, and like Crying in College became kind of my anthem to reclaiming my authenticity and who I was.
One favorite, Wes.
I'm done. I promise.
The whole album, obviously.
Oh, and Houdini.
Nah. I mean, echoing Wes, like every single song, I mean, to me too, like they're all cool and special in their own way. I think for me, my top 2 off the album would have to be Houdini and Untouchable. And I mean, that's just partially because I'm the drummer and those are the 2 songs that have the most aggressive, like fun, crazy drum parts and fills in them, right?
Yeah.
And they're sick.
There are 6 songs, and usually they both are songs that get the crowd going and like high energy, jumping up and down and stuff, which is always really fun for us as performers, especially when we nail those songs. When we there have been like maybe 1 or 2 live performances where we didn't nail those songs, and like that's bad, but generally speaking, yeah. No, like and Houdini specifically, I love that one because it's like got this kind of intense, like frantic energy that I just like really love. It's really a fun song for us to open our shows with when we are the headliner, because it just opens with that line, "Ladies and gents, welcome to the main event." It's like boom, here we are, and
it just comes out swinging. I love it. Yeah, it's like honestly, it's so fun because I feel like every song on the album, maybe a few exceptions, but every song starts out with like all of them are great energy levels, but they start out and then they almost just abruptly change within the song to still feel the same, but they have such a new vibe. And like, it catches me off guard every time I'm like listening to each of the songs. Like Crying in College is a great example. How it starts, to where it gets to in the chorus, I'm like, it was so much buildup, and then obviously like it goes to that very synthy, fun 80s ish, like honestly reminded me of like one of my favorites, Bill and Ted's. It kind of reminded me of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that soundtrack of a Bill and Ted's type thing.
Totally,
And
totally.
and so like
Freaking love that.
yeah, dude. And so, but each of the songs does that though. I feel like each one of your songs, they start out and there's so much technicality involved in how you guys play that things are evolving. And so do you guys kind of I mean, like with the live performance, I unfortunately haven't been able to see you live yet. But in that live performance, do you guys take those opportunities to kind of use that to your advantage to build up the excitement and the energy? Because obviously, like what you said, with the crowd and stuff, Houdini obviously is super high energy, and there's so much cool stuff going on at the very beginning of that song. But throughout the songs and stuff, do you guys kind of take advantage of the fact that you change it up so much in a song to play with the crowd and the energy?
I would say, yeah, I think we do. I mean, there's, different moments like, I mean, even in Houdini where we can just get them clapping, and then it goes to like the pre-chorus and it's more of that like groovy halftime feel. And then that carries over into the chorus until it goes to like a double time. And Wes will sometimes be like, all right, everybody jump. And
that's what I'm talking about, is like that's what the type of stuff where I'm talking about, where it goes from those different grooves and those different feelings, but it's still very cohesive as the same song. It's such a cool sound. I mean, I can't say enough how awesome it is to listen to.
Thanks, man. We appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. I do want to obviously you guys have shared the stage with quite a few awesome artists and come from a pretty rad music scene here in Utah. So I'm curious what some of your favorite shows have been, like maybe your favorite show you've played as Suit Up Soldier.
I mean, opening for Des Rocks and playing for Dana White, the president of the UFC, this Sunday was pretty damn cool and pretty unexpected. I mean, not the opening for Des Rocks. We knew about it for like over a month, but like, the fact that Dana White was there and gave me his phone number after, and maybe, who knows, you might hear some Suit Up Soldier at UFC events in the near future. Fingers crossed. Like, send him our stuff. He actually texted me back and he's like, sweet, I'll check it out and send it to our producers. So
that's so cool. I knew about Des Rocks, which I hadn't heard of his music, but then I checked it out. I was like, oh dude, that's a great lineup right there.
Yeah.
And
really fun.
So you got to tell me a little bit more about the whole Dana White thing though. How did this happen? What's
I'll tell it to you from my perspective, because I guess I had the most interaction with him. I was standing outside the venue waiting for a date, actually, that I was gonna take out for drinks after she watched our show, and I see this stretch limo Escalade pull up to the venue, and I'm like, what the hell?
And this is like maybe a 300 capacity venue. It's not.
Yeah. I think it's like
maybe
400. But there wasn't that many people. There's like,
which venue was it?
Urban Lounge in Salt Lake.
Oh, I know now.
Which is great. I love that.
My head on it,
Yeah, like super awesome venue. But I mean, it's a Sunday in Utah, so
pretty dead.
Anyways, but yeah, this stretch Escalade limo pulls up and I'm like, what is going on? And this like entourage starts getting out, and this guy steps out, and he's pretty big, wide and tall, and he's bald. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking, is that Dana White? No, there's no way. Like I follow UFC casually, so I know some of the faces and stuff, but I'm like, there's no way the president of the UFC is at this little show in Salt Lake City. No way. After they walk in, and they all nodded at me and stuff. Like after they walk in, I go back in the venue for a second, and one of the venue employees is like, "Did you see Dana White?" And I'm like, "Shut up! Are you kidding me?" And he's like, and then he's like, "Yeah, man, don't mess up your set." I'm like, ugh. Thankfully, we played killer set, like nailed it. And afterwards, I went up and I was like, I'm gonna shoot my shot. I went up and talked to him, you know. And he was super down to earth, super gracious. And I tried to make sure I didn't take too much of his time. So apparently he's like a huge fan of Des Rock. So he flew from Vegas to Salt Lake just for Des Rock's show in Salt Lake. And
Wow.
he saw our whole set. He told me, you guys sounded awesome. And also we thought you were the bouncer when we walked into the venue. It was like a nice, you know, little ego boost, right? And then towards the end of the conversation, I was just like, well, hey, if you liked our stuff, I mean, I think a few of our songs could really be the right vibe for UFC events. And he was like, oh yeah, take my cell number and let's connect. Wow. And I was just kind of like a little Star Trek, you know, I got it starstruck. I got his number really quick. And then Des Rock started playing, and I texted him later. And yeah, so I mean, it was a cool little unexpected thing. But you know, that kind of stuff happens in the music industry. And I feel like you have to just keep playing enough shows and taking opportunities, and just be ready for when those kind of potentially career making opportunities happen. I mean, obviously we don't know if anything does come of that, but it could, right? And
yeah,
you know, if you keep knocking at the door for so long, eventually someone's going to answer, I feel like.
Absolutely. So. And I mean, and plus now you can just tell your friends, I've got Dana White's number.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
I mean, how cool is that, right? It's like, if nothing else, you've got his number. It's like, and honestly, like the things that could happen, right? Like now that he's heard your set, he has your information. He's got so many connections in every industry, right? Like,
because even if he just becomes a fan, it's like,
exactly, just to have Dana White as a fan, that's huge, right? Because eventually it'd be like, he goes to one of your shows and posts about it on his Instagram. That's huge. I mean, just one little thing on his Instagram, that type of stuff is game changing. That's so cool, man.
Yeah. And I've tried to explain that to the guys. I think they understood that before joining the band, but like, you know, as I went through, like in my 20s, I built some businesses. I did a lot of sales. I was a salesman for a while. I don't know if you ever heard of Caffeine Corner. I don't know if I ever told you about that. It was we sold caffeinated beverages to BYU.
Okay.
Campus. We like delivered caffeinated sodas.
That's
to
so
BYU
fun.
Campus.
Before they did the lift of the caffeine or whatever.
Correct. So that was like that kind of put us out of business, and I sold the company to like a novelty soda shop to do a delivery service for them. But
okay.
But it was at that time that BYU was like all eyes were on my company because they were noticing that I was like doing well with it.
Yeah.
And anyway, just with all that business, and I did take some business classes in school, and kind of with all of that experience put together, I realized that, you know, that whole principle of 10,000 hours before you're professional and 10 years before you get your first break, like sometimes you get your break earlier, but like there's just some magical number of 10 of when you've been doing it for 10 years, you're bound to get good or have a break. And so we're on year 8.
There you go.
If from when I started the name of the band, we're on year 8. We're about 3 years in as this lineup, but yeah, it's like something's bound to happen if you just stick with it.
Yeah.
And in the right ways, I would say too.
Yeah.
Like there's, I always laugh about this because like, one of my favorite books is, you know, Malcolm Gladwell Outliers. Like I love that concept of the 10,000 hours, and you know, he talks about the outliers, and he's like, yeah, it's pretty consistent. Some people do catch that break, but the thing that like I'm always reminded of is it's like 10 years is there's a multiple parts to it, right? There's 10 years is a good amount of time for you to finally kind of understand all the different facets. Secondly, it's a good amount of time for people to get to hear you, learn who you are. But then it's also like, if you're able to make it 10 years, that means that you've got something going and you've got something in you that is, bigger than, you know, most people are going to quit after a couple of years, because it really is just so much. I mean, 8 years, you know, you could probably, like it's exhausting. And for you, like, what is it that has motivated you during these 8 years to just keep on trucking along?
Yeah, that question might get a little too deep. I'll try not to get too meta here, but like, for me, I think it was that I always knew that I wanted to do music. Like since I was about 18, I had it in my head that like music was going to be something in my life, you know,
Hmm.
whether it was a hobby or a career. I knew I was just going to involve myself in music no matter what. And so like I was never going to leave it. It was never going to leave me. And
Yeah.
you know, I played around with the idea of like going to business school or even like doing dentistry so that so that I could start a practice with my brother who's a dentist, and that all went down the drain really fast. I stepped into music pretty quickly because I hated school, and I was like, I
Yeah.
need something to help me like school so I can finish my degree.
Absolutely.
And so I I think that was it. It's just like for me it's like breathing. Like I just don't, music is a part of me, and so even if there's times where I hate the process, or I hate like, or like I've reached some sort of burnout or some sort of wall, I know that that's not going to be there forever because it's just like ingrained in me to be songwriting.
Yeah.
I use songwriting as a coping mechanism all growing up. I've known that I was gay since I was 16, and you know I waited 14 years to come out, and so music was just a huge coping mechanism for me. I couldn't leave it behind. It was kind of almost a lifesaver, you could really say.
Yeah.
Kind of saved my life, and so I just um, it's just always there. And yeah, as far as Suit Up Soldier, I just decided I'd heard the whole concept of 10,000 hours as well as the 10-year concept to build a successful career, and I just decided, well, if I'm going to continue writing songs, I might as well just release them under Suit Up Soldier. So
Yeah.
even when band members would turn over, I was like, I'll just find new ones, and was just hopeful that once I was done with school that I'd have maybe more clarity on how to move forward. And sure enough, you know, right as I was finishing school, found these guys and we're moving forward. So
Heck yeah. Was there ever a time that it was like that you had been deterred and just kind of like pulled off track?
oh yeah, there's like a 2-year period where I only did like a few shows under the Suit Up Soldier
Okay.
name. Um, yeah, I got married. I was married to a woman. That in and of itself is a whole nother story. I was in a mixed orientation marriage and had a baby, so I've got a beautiful 4-year-old daughter, and she'll
Awesome.
be 4 in September. And you know, we're still friends, maybe not like tight friends anymore, but you know, me and my ex, we built a good friendship from the start, and so we've
It
remained
helps the
friends.
kid.
And um, that during that whole period, you know, it was rough because we were in the worst financial spots that we'd ever been in. I ate a piece, like I remember one of the worst days I had as far as like poverty goes. I was eating a piece of bread for dinner. Um, Literally, I ate one piece of bread for dinner, and um, I those times were really hard. It was really hard to keep going, and you know, had to put music on hold while I got my life together, and
Yeah.
you know, went out and did sales, left my family for like 6 months, or well, actually like a 10-week ish period. I don't know where I got 6 months from. I think I was meant to say weeks, but
Oh.
like a 10-week ish period that I had to leave my family to go do sales to try to recoup all that money. We'd
Yeah.
had a miscarriage that actually caused us to lose some financial assistance through FAFSA, where we had to
Dang.
pay back that money. It was crazy, and
Just this whole roller coaster, man.
yeah. So when I was in that pit, I wasn't releasing music. I dropped out of school even that semester. So I was just working, and uh, when I was able to recover, came back refreshed.
Yeah. And just curious, and you know, I always like to make sure I caveat that if it's ever too personal to answer, but was there like within that time period, you know, all this chaos, all this turbulence, do you think that had you been able to do more music that it would have helped, or do you think that it would have been the exact same and maybe it would have put a bad taste in your mouth with music?
Yeah, I mean, what's done is done. So like, you
Yeah,
can't go back, right? But
absolutely.
you know, but toying with the idea of what I could change, I think personally for me, I probably wouldn't have finished school. After I learned, there was like a 2-year period where I really felt like school was useful for me, where I had made a good network. I was learning all the recording principles and production principles that I wanted, everything about audio that I wanted to learn in school, in the commercial music program there at BYU. And after that, it was just all fluff and busy work and things that I didn't feel like applied to me. And so I would have dropped out of school 4 years before I graduated in 2019, but I would have preferred to do music in my 20s and just move forward as a musician, because I would also be in less debt. Now I've accrued. Once my wife and I got married, 2016, we started to accrue debt, but that was around the time that I feel like I should have, in my mind, should have quit, because I just finished like all the relevant classes. And but I moved forward, accrued like tons of student debt. You know, there's a lot that I would change if I could, but because I can't, I don't regret the lessons I learned along the way,
or the people you met.
And the people I met.
Well, and just one more follow-up with that, like with the lessons you learned, what do you think those lessons, like, how do you think those lessons have impacted Suit Up Soldier? Like for you as a musician, you as a person, like what are some of the big key takeaways for you going forward that you have better understanding of, or better preparation for in the future?
Well, yeah, I want you to start taking over in a second, but I think on a base level, I feel like financially I was able to start kind of putting on my big boy pants and realize that as much as I was doing music for the passion and love I had for it, that ultimately it was a business. And that I could not sustain my music career if I could not sustain the business side. So I started to get a little bit more of a backbone with, contracts, and, I'm still learning that. We've had some crazy experiences this year. But we're, trying, I just feel like I developed a little bit better backbone with like the contract and financial side of things, so that I can be able to say, okay, yes, we do have the money to do this, or no, we don't have the money to do that. Or one of my favorite things to do is to weigh out an opportunity based on like the gig triangle. And the gig triangle is like, if it's good pay, good musicians that you like to play, like buddies of yours that you like to play with, good people. So good pay, good people, and good music. And you choose at least 2 of them, and you've got a good gig.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, so there's been times where like Suit Up Soldier's like, do we really want to do this gig? We don't know, but it pays well, so like let's do it. There's other times when it's like, oh man, they're really not paying that much, but do we really want to do this gig? Like Des Rocks, like that they were super gracious. We loved them. It was such a fun show. We're super happy we accepted it. But they couldn't pay much for us as an opener, but we were like, you know what, let's do it. And the fans were so nice. We sold a lot of merch that night, and it was we were able to make return.
Connected with Dana White. So.
Those connections too.
So being able, like, just being smart with weighing out our opportunities, and when an opportunity that sounds too good to be true comes to our door, all I have to do is say to that opportunity, hey, I'm under contract to pay my guys every show. So are you providing something for me that's worth it to come out of pocket, or are you actually going to pay us to make this worth it? Yeah. Because I am running, at the end of the day, I know you want to take advantage of musicians. It's really common, especially here in Utah, to take advantage of musicians and do it for the exposure. But that one line has saved me a lot. Just be like, okay, well, I'm under contract to pay my guys. So what can you offer?
No, your years of sales experience is definitely that counter, that ability to know your worth, to like it's so sad to see, like, even looking back on my own life, I'm like, man, how many times I just got screwed over because I just didn't say something. It's just so stupid. Just like, and you're right, especially with bands and musicians. It's like, this whole idea of exposure is comical. It's like, no, that's not a real thing. Like, maybe if it's like Coldplay says, "Hey, you want to join our show for free?" Yeah, that's exposure. But like, unless you're really getting crazy amount, it's not value at all.
Yep. Especially when someone comes to our door and is like, "Hey, do you want to headline this show? It'll be good exposure." It's like, what do you mean you're hiring us as the headliner?
We're headlining. Yeah, we're supposed to bring all the
We're
people as a headliner.
Exactly.
we're driving all the traffic here. What are you talking about? Exposure.
Yeah, it's like your job as a promoter. If you're trying to offer me like exposure, then you better do your job as a promoter to bring the people.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think? Any
lessons
lessons?
learned? Oh man, there's a ton, but I mean, I guess one big one that comes to mind is learning to have boundaries with how much work you're doing for something like this, which is a passion project that you're trying to turn into a career, but when it's not yet at that point that it's actually paying your bills, like you can't be putting full-time hours into it daily, which both Wes and I at different times have, and have each gotten super burnt out and exhausted as a result, and then like almost like completely stepped away from it for a little bit, right? So
Which is
learning
so
to
detrimental in the long run.
learning to, in order to hit those long-term goals, you have to kind of think long-term and think more like, okay, I'm going to do, a little bit per day on this. What's manageable? Can I spend an hour per day on, the business side of running the band, whether that's doing social media stuff or sending out emails or whatever it may be? Can I spend a couple hours,
Yeah,
and sometimes it just varies day to day. But that's definitely a big lesson learned, for sure.
absolutely.
That kind of aspect of time management and making sure you, I don't know, almost cap yourself. Even
Like knowing your limits, because there's
Yeah.
lots of bands that will play for a summer and then burn out and then they're gone after that summer.
yeah, because they play like
Yeah.
a bunch of shows that pay little or don't pay, and doing it all for the quote unquote exposure, and then it doesn't really actually provide them that much traction.
Yeah, exactly.
Very common. So that's a big one for me, for sure, that I think I learned. There's others too, but that's just what comes to mind.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like when you said time management, like the way that you explained it, it came to my mind. I was like, it's energy management too. It's
Yeah.
like I hadn't thought of it, but like knowing that it is a side project, it's something that you're passionate about, that you want to succeed. It's like you need to be like, especially as a creative endeavor, you need to have energy in order to make that creative side flourish, right? And that time management, if it's not right, you're burnt out and there's no creative juice. There's like no traction. So man, I love that. But thank you guys. I always like to end with just random questions. Do you guys still have a couple minutes?
I've got a few minutes. What about you?
Yeah, like maybe about 5 more.
Perfect.
Like, I
Yeah.
didn't.
Oh yeah, no, dude. I appreciate you guys' time. I honestly, these questions are just like genuinely just random for nothing to do with the band, right? It's just all about you. So this
Great.
first one,
we appreciate your time, by the way. So this is
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
absolutely, no, it's been an absolute pleasure on my side. So I'm really grateful that that you guys took the time. But first one here for you is because I am a sugarholic and I eat way too much candy and sweets. So this first question is, what is your favorite candy and or dessert?
Oh, dangerous question. Personally,
He's on a diet, so
yeah, I mean, I'm prepping for a bodybuilding show, but I am on a diet break for 2 weeks. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. I love me some good ice cream, man. Like personally, I think unless there's peanut butter in it, you can never go wrong with ice cream.
No peanut butter in your ice cream. None.
Peanut butter flavored ice creams, I absolutely hate them, and I don't think peanut
Okay.
butter should ever have been mixed with chocolate. I don't know why so many people
Wow.
like these peanut butter cups, but
Whoa, shots
whatever.
fired.
so
lots of shade.
yeah, y'all
Dang.
who be liking those Reese's peanut butter cups are crazy.
Don't
In my
at
opinion.
him.
No, don't at me. Or come at
Oh,
me.
that's
See what
funny.
happens. So ice cream or man, mega stuffed Oreos. Actually, those are
Oh, mega stuffed. Okay.
Dude, you need all that cream, man. Like,
All the okay, dude.
yeah. So,
Love it,
Those
man.
the ones that are like that long.
Yeah, where you get like
uh,
5 in an entire sleeve because there's so much cream.
well,
that
like
you get so
mega
few
stuffed are
re-
like actually
Oh
double
no, the
stuffed.
most stuff.
The most stuff is like,
with,
actually I like those too, but like mega stuffed is
Mega
fine.
stuffed is like a double stuffed, right?
Well, so double stuffed are actually not double the stuffing as of a regular Oreo. It's only like 1.5. It's only like 1.5. So mega stuffed is like actually double the amount. And then Oreo, the
Okay.
most stuff, which are hard to find usually, they're like maybe like 2.5 or something as much
Jeez,
cream.
that is a
they're
lot of
great.
interesting. I've never seen those ones. I've
Yeah.
obviously
So generally, I just like rich, creamy, chocolatey desserts.
It's a lot of lard.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I work hard for that lard.
yeah, dude. I mean, obviously, you're not hurting. You've got the workout regimen to back it up. So,
Oh yeah.
what about you, Wes?
Yeah, I'd say for me, a cherry limeade from Sonic.
Dude,
all
what a
day,
good
every day.
choice. Dude,
But if you
happy
really
hour
want
at
to make me, what was that?
happy hour at Sonic, man. Just get those
Right?
limeades all the time.
And if you get the app, it's happy hour any time of the day. And you just
Oh,
order from the
snap.
app.
Smart. I mean, that's a
And
good
you'll
to
make
know,
me
actually.
extra happy if you get easy on the cherry and easy on the ice.
Okay. Mostly a limeade, huh? Just okay.
So it's like
But
lime
it really-
flavored water.
No, the thing is that it tastes just like a cherry limeade, but they didn't overwhelm you with the syrup like they usually do.
okay. I always go with the strawberry limeade, but dude, the cherry one's
Okay,
pretty good.
fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, that and like maybe a Krispy Kreme donut, but I can only have like 2 or 3 of those before I'm like down and out for the count. So
Yeah. My favorite donuts here in Utah are from a place called Cowboy Donuts.
ooh, I've been wanting to try them.
Dude, so good. I literally go there way too often because my sons, they love the kolaches there. They have like,
Ooh.
I don't know if you've had kolaches before, but yeah, they've got kolaches and then their donuts. They've got super great cake donuts and then their crispy, like their glazed donut is just amazing. So
Heck yeah, I have to try it out. Not officially sponsored.
I know,
by
right?
Donuts.
I know. I wish. All right, got 2 more for you. One, this next one here. Favorite. If you can't come up with your single favorite, you can do your top 3 if you want. But favorite movie.
Oh man, you're coming out with tough questions. I'm just gonna go off the top of my head and say Gladiator, The Dark Knight, and what would be a third one? Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King. How about that?
Heck yeah, dude. It's a solid 3 right there. I
Yeah,
like it.
pretty solid.
I like it.
Goes those themes go right along with the muscles.
Yeah, right. I was like Gladiator. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Dark Knight. Okay, yeah, a little bit of muscle there. That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I think for me, if we're talking like modern movies, maybe like Encanto or Coco.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
Both of those were
Coco,
really.
I think I would choose Coco over Encanto, I think. But
Yeah, Coco was like one of the. I think I've really only ever cried in 1 or 2 movies, and Coco was one of them. So
Coco was such an incredible movie. The story, the music, the themes, everything was just magical. I loved that movie so much.
so good. And then as far as old movies go, there's I used to really be into iRobot,
Okay.
The Truman Show,
That's a good.
Classic for sure.
Frequency. If you ever saw that movie,
Oh yeah, where he travels back in time to try and save his dad and like
yeah, but like
the
just
radio.
through the airwaves because he's like,
yeah,
on
through the radio, like so cool. I remember when I was a little
Um,
kid, we saw that at a drive-through, and my dad was like, "Don't tell your mom," because I was like 10 or 11. And he's like, "This is PG-13. Don't tell your mom."
it's so good.
Yeah, dude, what a great
Um,
movie.
Yeah, I think those ones. And then there's one just honorary mention. There's this movie called Clifford, not the Big Red Dog, but
Oh,
it's
the one with Steve Martin and Martin Short.
Martin Short.
Yeah.
And he plays like a 10-year-old kid. So
Yep.
good. It's totally 90s humor, and I love it. And most of my friends can't, like, when they watch it with me, they're like, that
What is
was
wrong with
nice.
you?
yeah, like WTF. And I'm like, but for me, it's like straight up nostalgia. I love that movie.
Dude, it
Okay,
throws
well, if I'm
that
gonna get an
movie way
honorary
back.
mention, It's gonna be That Thing You Do.
Yes.
Dude, that is my favorite Tom Hanks movie.
Oh,
By-
honestly, I mean, maybe for me, toss it between that and Saving Private Ryan as far as like Tom Hanks go.
Oh,
but
yeah.
wildly
Yeah.
different kinds of movies, right?
Yeah, vast, yeah.
And that's like probably my favorite like comedic movie of all time, potentially.
That's where he gets his stage.
And
name
that's
from.
also where I get the stage name Spartacus. You know,
Oh,
that's
heck
where
yeah.
the
That
movie-
makes a lot of sense, actually. 'cause
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I think
that
I'm just gonna
drummer.
let that hang so
love
that
it.
anyone listening to this
I need to watch it.
wonders why
Wonders.
Wonders. I was gonna say meters.
Yeah, meters.
why anyone
Oh,
wonders, if you know, you know.
If you know, you
why
know.
the nickname Spartacus comes from a Tom Hanks movie called That Thing You Do. Go watch
Yeah.
it, people. It's amazing and
Absolutely.
severely underrated, I think.
As far as
It
music
really
movies
is.
go, that and School of Rock are
Yeah, School of
life-changing.
Rock, life-changing movies for sure. Like both very much inspired me to like.
Oh,
Get
Jack
rocked.
Black.
Mhm.
Yeah, dude. What an awesome actor. Oh, dude. Yeah, man. Clifford throws me way back to my childhood. We had that on Laserdisc. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever seen a Laserdisc player. It was basically a record player, but for movies.
Oh my
man.
gosh.
Yeah, it was that throws me way back, dude. That's so good. All right. Last one here for you. Once again, thank you guys so much for your time.
course.
So this one here is favorite non-music related hobby, something you love to do that has nothing to do with music.
Why don't you go first?
Wes apparently doesn't have any non-music related. Man, I mean, if we go just by like amount of time I spend doing something other than music, it would have to be like bodybuilding / just general fitness in the gym. Because I don't know how long term I'll actually do like bodybuilding competitions. I'm doing my first one this fall, and for a lot of people, they do one and then they never do one again, even if they continue lifting weights and being really in shape and stuff for the rest of their lives. But I mean, bodybuilding in and of itself is like very, very taxing and time consuming. But anyway, so just generally, lifting weights and fitness, that kind of lifestyle. That's like really like my biggest hobby and time consumer outside of music. An honorary mention to going clubbing on the.
Oh, they disappeared on me. I don't know if they'll join in again, but hopefully we'll see. If they do, cool. If not, we'll just kind of leave it hanging here for just a second longer here. But cool guys, man. We'll see if they jump back in. If not, life goes on. Yeah, the phone died. Yeah, their phone died, but hopefully you guys like that one. Those guys are super rad. Awesome conversation. And not sure what I'll have next. I'm trying to get a better balance in life in terms of number of episodes and probably going to start going to an every other week schedule. So I'll let y'all know. But until next time, deuces.